Well, how about that? How about that playoff semifinal there? Orange Bowl, Georgia over Michigan, Cotton Bowl earlier in the day, Alabama over Cincinnati. Had so much to talk about. I said, why don't we just fire it up? Let's talk about it right here on the field at Hard Rock Stadium. There's a lot of angst and bitterness out there that we are going to see in all SEC National Championship. I don't really want to talk about that yet. We've got an entire week to week and a half to talk about that. But I did want to talk about both of these games, and I wanted to kind of lump them in. Instead of doing what we normally do on the show, where I would do an entire game recap and rapid reaction, let's just blend them in, because they felt very similar. You watch Alabama earlier in the day. We were coming into Hard Rock Stadium, coming through security, kind of keeping your eye on the TV as you come in. And it's slowly but surely you get to where you ask yourself, did this game get decided on the first drive? Yeah, it did. Like Brian Robinson was more productive than Cincinnati's offense, it seemed, during the day. Then you get the nightcap, and you swear to yourself, well, this one's going to be more competitive, and it really wasn't. And Georgia, that's where I kind of want to start. Like, we talked so much after the SEC championship game about Georgia and how there were a lot of things that went wrong for them in Atlanta, but that's against Alabama. A lot of things go wrong against Alabama. That didn't automatically mean that the team was fractured. It didn't automatically mean that their hopes of winning anything beyond just the SEC East all of a sudden vanished up in smoke. They bought themselves the luxury of still making it in the playoff, even having not won the SEC, because they did take care of business elsewhere in such dominant fashion. But having said that, you watched the SEC championship game just like I did, and you saw Bryce Young with time to throw, because you saw what had been a vulnerable Alabama offensive line sort of stymie the Georgia pass rush. Well, I was asking myself, and I know a lot of you were as well, what if Michigan does that? Well, they didn't. They didn't. Georgia was able to be effective and affect the quarterback all night long. Well, also, what they were able to do is they were able to start fast offensively. So Georgia, boom, touchdown. Committed to the run game, by the way, didn't they? Whole lot more. Over 5.5 yards per carry on the ground. And then they turned Michigan over on downs, and boom, they scored again, and Georgia's up 14-0. And I texted some of my buddies on the field, is this Alabama-Cincinnati 2.0? Like, is this already decided a few minutes in to the first quarter, let alone the first half, just the first quarter? And it was like that. And I'll tell you, as we get into it a little bit, I tweeted out during the game, because there's phenomenal Wi-Fi at Hard Rock Stadium, I tweeted out during the game, one of the phrases that you hear a lot around signing day, and you hear it a lot during the spring and summer, and maybe during preview magazine season, as we like to call it, you hear folks say, star ranking's a little bit overrated. You guys notice no one tends to say that on nights like this? Like, when we get to the meat of the postseason, no one's ever talking about star rankings not mattering, because they kind of do. And so you're looking at just wave after wave for Georgia. And it's the difference between having a couple of staple players. Aiden Hutchinson had a phenomenal year for Michigan this year. The reason why you find yourself asking, where's he at? Why is he such a non-factor? It's because Michigan doesn't have those guys stacked like Georgia does. That's okay. It's an evolutionary process in recruiting. And I listened to the Michigan players afterwards. They understand what the deal is. Jim Harbaugh understands what the deal is. But the bottom line was, Georgia came in, there was an opportunity. I know the final score doesn't look like it. There was an opportunity, if they didn't go after the throat early, for this game to be in doubt. Believe it or not, there is a version of this game out there where Michigan's competitive. They never let it happen. I mean, they grabbed the throat early, and Georgia played with purpose. I mean, purpose. There was never a doubt. There was never a stagger. They were never on skates. They were the aggressor all night long. And what gets so fun is you watch this outcome, and you say, all right, so that wasn't us against Alabama, but there it is. That's the Georgia I know. And then you got to ask yourself, you got 9 days to do it, is that team specific? Like, is it just Georgia being Georgia, or is it opponent specific? Is there something about Alabama? Well, there is something about Alabama. I don't think they're unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination for Georgia, but yeah, as we crank the music up a little bit, there is something about Alabama, because we watched it earlier in the day. I've talked at great length about Alabama right now, kind of feeling like they have some Clemson vibes to them. And they've shown different ways to win. They've outscored folks, and then today, I mean, we saw pretty early on, they realized Cincinnati can't score on us. It was like the Michigan State game. It's like the Notre Dame game. And so they ran out the clock, and it was ho-hum. It was such a benefit for Alabama to have that #1 seed, by the way. But now we head to Indianapolis. Saw kind of two versions of the same game today. We head to Indianapolis, and the funny thing about watching this unfold the way it did is everyone's got their thought on the playoff. If you're like me, you don't believe in expansion at all. You think expansion does nothing and it actually waters down the regular season. Some other folks believe the opposite. Nobody comes across the aisle. Yeah, like I watch this kind of outcome and I think to myself, having my personal convictions, there's no way you can still believe an expanded playoff is the answer to quote unquote solving the problems if you think they are in this sport right now. And yet, as sure as I say that, I look at my phone and I got the expansionist telling me, well, it's not about the champion. I thought this was a tournament to crown a champion. Well, it's not about the champion. Yeah, the champion may still be the same. We just want some exciting quarterfinal games. It's not college football to me. We just differ on our opinion of what makes good college football. Like, I think you can have a very quality regular season game in early October and it can still be consequential because there are so few playoff spots. Like, I believe we can have that. I don't believe you have to have a playoff sticker on the side of a college football game for it to mean something. That's why I don't believe that an all-SEC national championship game takes away at all from the fact that we just saw the best regular season in the modern era of college football. So that's where I stand on that. I know a lot of you were filling the inbox and blowing up the eye, Josh, about that. But look, this was a semifinal that I know afterwards everyone kicks themselves and says, I should have seen coming. Not many people saw Georgia blowing Michigan out. It's okay. We didn't see it. Saw Alabama stretching Cincinnati. That was a little bit easier to see coming. But as sure as we sit here now, and we're going to regroup, we're going to head home from Miami, we're going to head to Indianapolis, just as I told you, and some of you didn't believe me, and I got the receipts, Georgia opens as a favorite of 2.5 points, to be exact, over Alabama in the national championship game. This is a rematch again. We saw it in 2017. Kirby Smart yet to beat Nick Saban. All that stuff's going to be talked about. But look, it's not Nick Saban, Kirby Smart. They're not on the field. It's going to come down to the same thing. It's going to come down to how much can you affect Bryce Young? How much can you get your running game going? How much does Stetson Bennett have to throw out of necessity rather than luxury? Stetson Bennett had a really good night tonight. You notice, by the way, not a whole lot of JT Daniels talk once this thing got kicked off. Kenny McIntosh did more through the air than JT Daniels. Looked pretty good doing it too. So the national championship game is set. We had a great time in Miami. They treated us phenomenally down here. Going to be in Steve Wiltfong country in Indianapolis for the national championship. We're going to get back up to Nashville. We'll have a live show Sunday night. Looking forward to at least cracking the egg on the national championship game. But there's a whole lot going on right now, guys, that we kind of put on the back burner because we wanted to get through the semifinals. Going to have a jam-packed show Sunday from Nashville, weather permitting, of course. So thank you so much for watching. Thanks for making this entire season possible.